Please hold whilst we connect you to Redacted.
This is Fraser, Greenfield.
This is Louis Mills.
And this is Casper Asmussen, and you're listening to Redacted.
Today, we are joined by Casper Asmussen, the co-founder and chief creative officer of Above, a Scandinavian innovation agency known for the seamless blending of strategy, design, and technology since 2017. With studios in Malmö, Stockholm, Shenzhen, and Gothenburg, and clients like ABB, IKEA, Husqvarna, Polestar, and Fjällräven. With a background in industrial design and a passion for system-level thinking, Casper leads his multidisciplinary team across physical and digital domains. G'day, Casper, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Redacted.
Just to start off, who is Casper Asmussen in 100 words or less?
I'm a Swedish product designer and a strategist. I'm also the co-founder of Above, as well as a chief creative there. I'm also a partner at Adra, which is a consultancy collective that we're a part of. These days, I work across most types of design, from innovation to experience, industrial design, and digital. At Above, we're about 160 creatives working, as you mentioned, with some of the world's largest brands like Google, Sonos, Mercedes, and Logi. But we also work with some scale-ups and, of course, some local heroes like Polestar, IKEA, Spotify, B&O, and POC. In my role, I balance creative work with commercial work, having the luxury to both work with some of the best teams on the planet, but also the most ambitious clients and brands. On a more personal note, I consider myself a bit of a cultural catalyst. I'm also a skateboarder, turning more of a lycra cyclist in older days when all the bones have been broken.
Too many ollies?
Too many really bad ollies, yeah.
Explain cultural catalysts quickly.
I just try to get the best out of people by creating a good vibe and trying to just build a place where people want to work, I'd say.
How did you discover the field of industrial design?
I kind of stumbled upon it. I was a graffiti artist in younger years, so quite obsessed with line work, with composition, form and color, super interested in art and illustration. As an anecdote, I recall being obsessed with what glasses my 3-year-old brother should get when I was 7, which probably isn't normal for any 7-year-old. And then basically from there, in teenage years, when it was time to select a path, I actually thought I applied to graphic design school, but it turned out to be industrial design, which I knew nothing of.
Oh, that's amazing.
Got that third dimension for free. So it was just all coincidence. Obviously, quite happy about that today. I would say that two-dimensional graphic approach has been quite useful also in industrial design, in setting the silhouette or the memorable icon of a silhouette. I started going to design school actually in 1997, so that's eons ago. Late 90s, early CAD, Illustrator 7 was just amazing. Very early days. In many ways, there was no precedent. There was really no way to do it. So we were exploring everything for the first time. Those days, we really had to evangelize what industrial design was. I mean, I didn't even know myself just a couple of years before. So there was a lot of convincing people, a lot of elevator pitches on what we were doing and why the hell that had any value to anyone.
You don't think we still have to evangelize industrial design?
Not so much, actually. Not industrial design per se, but we have to evangelize how to do things properly. I think everyone's trying to take shortcuts today, but at least everyone's aware of what it is and where it comes to play. We're still evangelizing, but different topics, I'd say. So early days then, I got accepted to design school. As mentioned, I started my first couple of years down in Lund, and then I moved to Stockholm to the University of Arts and Crafts called Konstfack, and I graduated in 2002. Actually getting into Stockholm, I remember the exam. It was a test with the theme time, and a lot of my fellow applicants would do these very intricate artistic pieces. And I got this big bet idea that I would just remove the spiral from a ballpoint pen and bring that as the only token, symbolizing the circularity in one dimension and the linear in the other, and then how it contracts as relativity. And I was lucky for that one to fall on the right side. So I got into school on a big idea, but limited work, I would say.
Spring and a prayer.
It's called being efficient.
Yeah, exactly. So that was good.
So this was around 2001, 2002. Did they teach CAD classes in industrial design then, or was it more focusing on the theory?
They did. So I think in that regards, maybe I was unfair saying we were like the first ones out. There are, of course, generations that came before us really breaking new ground, but it was still very much around the thinking, I would say, building narratives, strong concepts, and a little less about the tools. In a way, today, with exceptional tools and augmentation through AI and so forth, at times I'm a little bit worried we use our brains a little too little, while back in the day, there was really no excuse not to.
As you eventually graduated, how did you go from that transition from student to actual working designer?
Obviously, the final year is always super intense. Everyone that's gone to design school know that it's quite painful catharsis that you need to go through where you spend all the time at school. I basically slept there for a couple of months, eventually ended up actually losing the skin off both my hands and feet due to stress syndrome. Not recommended, to be honest.
Did you get a good mark though?
I got a good mark.
Well, skin grows back.
But anyway, so that was super tough. I was lucky to get some kind of recognition for that thesis work and probably got a bit of a bloated ego and good confidence coming out in 2002 and realizing that it was actually tougher than I thought to land a proper job. I mean, back in the days, there simply weren't all that many industrial design jobs out there. So the first one I got, I was actually lucky, I'd say. So maybe after a couple of months, I landed this job at a place that did merch for really big brands. Maybe not the most profound type of work to do merch, but it taught me a couple of things.
Was this an internship or a full-time job?
It was actually a full-time job. I can't remember ever doing an internship, but it was a very specific learning for me. The nature of things were very different from design school, where we were taught to do things super properly. There was a process, do the diligence and so forth. While in merch, the brief could very well be like on a Monday to do 10 products this week. You have 1 week to do 10 products.
By merch, you mean t-shirts, branded caps?
Yeah, kind of like that, but I would say maybe one step further. It wasn't just adding brand on top of existing stuff, but creating custom things for brands. I remember working with Nokia, Carlsberg, those types of brands. It could be aprons for a bartender, things like that. Fairly simple products, but with that, I really learned to conceptualize super fast, which is very valuable. Also learned to manifest a brand in physical design, which is also super valuable to understand the ethos of a brand, the signifiers, the DNA, and then convert that to new things. And third, and maybe the most important, I learned that I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Important lesson to learn.
Very important lesson.
Yeah.
I was lucky to move on. I found a job at a different agency where my friends worked in Stockholm at the time, which was very much like the stereotypical agencies of the early 2000s. Fast projects, evangelizing about design. Early days, you'd sit around, a group, just sketches, throw things on the wall. Quite analog, but also had the fortune to really early on get the trust or maybe luck to drive my own clients and own projects, even just maybe a year in.
Wow, that's really good.
It was super helpful. I will say, though, that when a new project came in, the chief creative would ask, who wants to do this and who wants to do that? And I would always just say, I want to do it, no matter what. I had to do double things, triple things, throw myself out there. Which I guess is a tip to any designer out there, is just to always say yes.
But what was that process exactly like, going from a merchandise house to working at Propeller, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Was there just a job posting up? Did you hear it through a friend? Did you have to beat them in a drinking game?
No, I heard it through a friend. It was actually the place I really wanted to work at. My friend did work there and I went to their parties. I made sure to just be around. And eventually there was a temp role that I jumped on, and that was that. It's such a long time ago. My memory almost fails me, I'll have to admit.
No, that's good. And some good tips there.
We'll call it mythology at this point. Are there fun parties at DNI
Yeah, plenty of fun parties at DNI.
where strangers come up and try and get temp roles?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, all right.
Maybe at PI. I know that you went to Nokia after that. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that and how was the process then moving to Nokia?
Especially considering it was pre-iPhone and then post-iPhone.
That was the rise and the doom of the kingdom. Yeah, Propeller, we did a project with them, and then they scouted me from there. I then moved down to Malmö and Copenhagen. I worked in Copenhagen, and I joined Nokia. I had never owned a Nokia phone or even used one, which I'm not sure I admitted to anyone at the time.
Oh, you didn't get to experience the awesome moment of dropping the phone and the floor breaking, not the phone.
Exactly. We actually have an engineer here that did that, legendary 3310, the one that is now used by carpenters as hammers.
Or put it in your handbag as an impromptu weapon for a UFC fight.
Indeed, that too. That move, it wasn't all that easy, to be honest, because I consider myself an agency person, super excited about the variety of work and just at high pace and not necessarily being all that interested in politics and everything that comes with an in-house job. But I'm super excited and happy I did that. It was just such a learning experience. I tell most younger designers today when asking that you should really try both sides. It's just such a humbling experience. If you come from the agency life, you're throwing out new ideas. It's always about innovation, ways to really come up with something amazing and new, right? But if you're on the inside, once the party ends, you still need to live with those products and execute and drive them through and be responsible for them actually selling and so forth. I think it was just very humbling, and it was actually super fun to be on the inside. It was also the glory days, I'd say, in some way. Consumer tech has come a long way, but back then there was really nothing like it, where you had the convergence of advanced technology, never been done before in that way, the miniaturization, the human factors, all the interaction models, the hardware meets software. That transition had also not really happened before that way. I almost get goosebumps thinking about those days. It was a lot of fun.
Were there some interesting characters working there that you were able to get some mentorship from as well?
Oh my God, yeah. I'd say all over. Everything was new for me. Of course, within design, I had amazing colleagues, both on my same level, but also more senior, where I learned so much from. But also from sitting down with engineers, sitting down with product people, marketers, and you just get to see the entire machinery and see how that all comes together. And then somehow, whatever you're sitting there in my little Illustrator file or printing your little mock-ups out, all of a sudden goes on to be one phone that I did that was sold in 19 million units.
Wow.
That rarely happens today, that type of impact in a way. To see that whole chain and see that machinery was super exciting.
You mentioned that when you move to an in-house role, there's a lot of specific challenges that you have to do in an in-house role as opposed to in a consultancy, and how those could be a significant challenge. Could you give us some examples and how you address those?
Some of the challenges would be handling longer timelines. How do you keep motivation going? It's easy to keep motivation for those inspirational, creative, what we before called the party. That's easy, but you got to stick with it for a long time and really do the grind. In that case, I would spend 2 weeks saving 0.2 millimeters of the thickness of a phone. That very hard grit I hadn't really seen before. Also, one thing I'd say was, and maybe it was actually the transition then to going on to Form Above. In the early days, there was very much the design as this kind of elitist artist coming in and pointing to what the product should be. And then if the engineers couldn't make it, there was this notion of just push harder, push them harder, make them work harder. Not a big fan of that rhetoric or methodology is just not the right way to do it. Out of the 200 designers in Nokia Design, we were a SWAT team really being super focused on integrated with the engineers and really understanding why is this a challenge? What is the problem? What are the challenges? What are all the requirements? Really trying to uncover the depth of the challenge to then maybe collectively try to solve it. Instead of creating this friction, much rather working with understanding, I'd say. That kind of collaboration with engineers is also then, as mentioned, the springboard into forging above some years later.
Shifting from being less of an auteur to a collaborative team member.
I would say so, especially in those type of complex works. I'm sure in furniture design or many other domains of design, you want those traces of the originator. Maybe there's a different kind of dynamic in how that works. But if you're doing industrial design for the masses globally, there's really no way but to collaborate, I'd say, even though it sounds a bit cliche, perhaps. You mentioned the rise of the iPhone, which is hard to ignore during those days.
The elephant in the room.
Yeah. When I came in, Nokia had 46% of the global market or something like that. Then it started declining. The iPhone came in. I remember seeing it and thinking, we're doomed. Our marketing and business department were like, this is never going to work. I can't drive my car and text at the same time, which is a bad idea anyway. So they just ignored it in a way. Within the design team, though, we were really feeling like, oh my God, this is going to disrupt. Apple took a computer and made it small, while Nokia and all the others, to be fair, were just adding features onto a phone, basically. And that's just not the right kind of starting point.
Was there any scramble to change roadmaps and do something similar, or?
People were stressing out all over the place. And I was fortunate to design with my colleagues the N9. I'm not sure you guys remember. It was a all plastic chassis, all square in the front, in some colors. It was a death rattle for sure, but at least at the time, a little bit iconic. That was the last thing I did before jumping that ship and moving on to start above.
Just to recap, why do you think there was this discrepancy between different departments on design, seeing iPhone as this massive industry-changing threat versus other arms of the business, obviously seeing it as a bit understated? I know, for example, there was a lot of criticism at the time. The iPhone came out at about $499 US, which at the time made it one of the most expensive phones out there, far more than the BlackBerry. We spoke to Tim Perry and he mentioned that the Palm Pilot had many of the features of the iPhone, but was not the same groundbreaking product. And yet designers saw the writing on the wall, but marketing and business executives clearly didn't, not just at Nokia, but also at Sony and many others. What was the root cause of this discrepancy, do you think?
That type of fundamental change that Nokia and the others would have had to make would have gone all the way down to ground floor. First of all, you need software first. You need platform. Just the fact that Apple introduced an app store, just being able to install experiences on the fly while everything else was hard-coded. They would have needed to make such a fundamental change to how everything was made, ground up, that it was just easier to hold your eyes and ears and hope for the best.
Yeah, I suppose they could still put products out. Otherwise, they would have had to start something from the start and not release anything for years, I guess.
Basically build a whole new business.
Yeah, doing the reboot is difficult for sure. As a side note, I worked with Tim back in the days. Jag är Casper. Och ni lyssnar på Redacted.
Hey, it's Will here. At Redacted, we believe that everyone has a role to play in making the world a little better, even in the smallest ways. Sometimes shining a light on the good stuff is all it takes to spark change or rally others to a bigger cause. This is why we've teamed up with the Better Future Awards, a global network of design awards that celebrate products, studios, and ideas making a real difference. Whether it's environmental impact, social equity, or economic outcomes, these awards highlight the work that pushes us forward. The nominations are open now, so if you or someone in your orbit has been creating something meaningful, consider throwing a hat in the ring. To find out more about the Better Future Awards, head to betterfutureawards.com/redacted. That's betterfutureawards.com/redacted. You can also find the link at the top of the show notes. Redacted, 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 redacted.
Let's jump into your next steps now. So starting from the beginning, what did the early days of the Above studio look like? And when did it become clear that it was time to scale up?
While I was at Nokia, some of my friends from Propeller then had jumped that ship and started a small design firm called Howl, which I then joined after Nokia, starting the Copenhagen and Malmö studio. As Nokia was going down a bit, some of my engineering friends from there, they left Nokia in Copenhagen and started this engineering firm called Frankly. Because I was down here and the engineers also, and because of our newfound conviction that we should collaborate across disciplines, that just seemed like a perfect springboard to start collaborating down here. We had a bit of a head start when we started together. And then over the first couple of years, Frankly and Hal started working so much together, both on design and engineering, technology, and so forth, that it just seemed like it made sense to get married and forge and merge under one name Above in 2016 or 17.
Was there a prenup?
Yes. Let's not talk about the details, but yes. Those were the early days. I was a little bit fortunate. Some of my friends at Howl had taken those first dog years of soup and bread and sleepless nights. There were plenty of sleepless nights later as well, but we were so excited about this idea of doing things. Because the early 2000s were all about coming up with the coolest concepts anyone could imagine. If you got a spread in wallpaper, you were like, oh, I'm done. We're good. And then in comes Apple and a couple of others, and they create products and experience better than the concepts. And all of a sudden, I would almost say that the conceptual age was over. There was no value in storytelling unless you can actually make it and bring it to market. We're so excited about being able to fuse design and technology together and then go to market with that as a service. So we're just blindly hoping to scale from day one, I'd say. Your question was, when did we decide to scale? I'd say from the first day. We always wanted more clients, more colleagues, more fun work, maybe some more studios. I don't know. I just like more.
Why not? You said you started with the engineers. Did they have both mechanical and software already? Or was it just you guys bringing in the conceptual design and then with some engineering experience, like mechanical?
There was mostly mechanical engineering, but really early on, they also took on software and technology, architecture, and things like that, being able to both conceptualize technology, but also follow through. Individually, both firms were very independently viable. It was just that together we became stronger. So it made a lot of sense.
On the first day, you decided to scale up and you created Light. On the second day, what was your strategy that you came up with to scale up over the next 2 years?
I wish there was a strategy. Thinking back, we were super strategic. When you go from a designer to an entrepreneur, that's quite a big shift. That takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's quite tricky. And it's a journey that I'm probably still on, to be honest. Laying that ground early on in learning how to do everything for the first time. We had the ambition to be progressive, both in how we run the company and, of course, in what we do. Of course, we want to be progressive and creative in the work that we do. But also as a company, we were exploring what is the latest research on how to build high-performing teams. How do we work with creative development? How do we work with minimal viable policy, our MVP, which is how do we create as little structure and as much creativity and momentum forwards? I'm not sure that was a strategy per se, but at least it was a mindset.
Good mindset to have.
It's the first step of a strategy.
You mentioned building from the start and getting some of these initial clients, but how did you go from getting these concepts in magazine spreads then to landing the first big client?
Again, everything happens by chance a bit. So I was over in San Francisco doing some work for a client, quite a short sprint. and then had the chance to take a coffee with some guys that I knew had worked at Nokia, but I didn't know them personally. That then led to jumping on their startup at the time called Ether, which was a very ambitious startup out of San Francisco, wanting to build the world's first really smart music speaker. It was funded and founded by Fraser, who's one of the founders of Skype. So there was some good financing to back it. We started going in with ID. So in the beginning, I was the only one from above working on design there. But then as our business development strategy is very much like a Trojan horse, you send someone in and then you let out the troops. We brought on more and more people. So interaction designers, engineers, and all kinds of stuff. And then that engagement from above side grew from just being me to a full team of 20 people actually building some music speakers and wearables early days. We did one program, which was wireless earbuds, and this was way before AirPods and all kinds of wireless earbuds. We came over to Copenhagen, we met Janos, the founder. He took up one of these super expensive corded headphones, held them, and he said, "Hold out your hand." And we held out our hand. I took a pair of scissors, he cut the cord, and then just had the headphones in his hand and said, "Give me this." So it was a pretty good brief. And then we had to simply go and design and build those. We were able to take those to functional prototypes and take it all the way to build ones and so forth. Then the company as a whole didn't make it all the way. Ether was a company of some of the best people I've ever worked with, to be fair, but maybe an example of overemphasizing on design. A lot of designers, a lot of experienced designers. Everything was beautiful and great. And there was one salesperson.
Oh, yeah.
As a designer, it was fun as hell, but not the way to really make anything fly in the real world.
Oh, that's a shame. Sometimes the ones that you really want to make it never make it onto the shelves.
That's how it is.
It's a silly question, but I got to ask it. Did someone later look through their desk and go, "Who cut my headphones?"
No, he cut his own headphones, so it was good. But that could have happened as well.
Yeah. That's a really cool one. But how did you first get in contact with the guys from Ether?
I haven't really made a distinction between professional relations and personal relations. Maybe that's not just me. Maybe that's our profession. For good or bad, I'm one with my work, as many designers are. My friends are, in many cases, designers, and they have friends and so forth. So I would say most of Above's growth and success comes from all the founders and all the early employees' personal networks and recommendations. It's honestly a lot about karma. It sounds super cheesy, but if you do really good work, you get more really good work coming back to you. And if you're nice and if you're nice to work with, there's plenty actually examples out there of talent that is not that nice to work with. And it's not the most sustainable approach. But the short answer is always personal networks, recommendations, and be nice.
You mentioned getting your work in Wallpaper magazine. Was there a specific process to do that back in the day?
Not really. Back in the day, it was quite small. The entire community and the world was quite small. I think maybe the first time was my student thesis work or something like that, which they just scouted the schools for good and fun things. And then over the years, it happens quite sporadically. Once in a while, we do these stints of externalizing our brand, pushing releases out and things like that. And it's good. Of course, it's always good to work with intent also as an agency to get yourself out there. But a lot of it happens by chance, to be honest. Someone sees it, recommends it, and then puts it in. I would say probably 70-80% of the work we do, it's a market, of course, but it takes many shapes before it comes out, sometimes many years even. It's important to mix that up. Once in a while, we do these self-initiated projects, concepts, ideas, even pitches that we then put out there to gain traction and get more incoming business.
That makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. Just jumping back into Above, do you mind maybe going through some of the Above design process for us?
Process. That's a good question. We've flip-flopped over the years from having a somewhat diligent, almost copywritten or trademarked process to nowadays, I would almost say we don't have a process. At least we don't have one singular process. We're so wide and fairly big that if you're a software engineer or if you're a concept designer, experience designer, if you're in visual design or whatever it might be, a lot of the process in detail looks quite different from each other. We do try to curate the process to whatever the client is and the challenge and so forth. It's a very customized process. It's not like we're just throwing ourselves out there like, let's see what happens.
Sounds kind of fun.
We know the backbone of the process and we're quite structured in the way we do it. It's just that we really curate and customize it. Much more than a process, though, instead of dictating exactly what to do, we're trying to align around principles of how to do things, basically mindset. We have defined 5 principles that we try to have immersed throughout the company and have everyone subscribe to. The first one's be confidently curious. The second one's make it till you make it. Third one's to take fun seriously. The fourth one is to own the challenge. And then the fifth one is to bring your passion. The confidently curious is juxtaposed between being really confident in your point of view, but also always ready to change it. The make it till you make it is really about just prototype everything, whether it's physical prototype, digital, even like an experience model or like a strategy can also be prototype. So we're much about always testing and trying, and not only prototype to validate, but also prototype to explore and find new things. Take fun seriously is one of my favorite ones. It's just really fun to be ridiculous and balance the seriousness of our work with having a good time and let loose and unlock that creativity that comes with it. A design studio should be the most fun place to work at in the world. And then own the challenge. It's not meant to be easy. If it's easy, everyone else would have done it already. If it's easy, it's just a copy. If you're a designer and somehow hope for everything to just fall in place and be one linear process, you should probably find yourself another job. And then bring your passion is just about aligning company vision with individual vision. When personal growth and company growth can really fuse together as one, there's such enormous power forward. We're really trying to also obviously work very diligently with performance frameworks and learning platforms and all that, but also making sure that the right people get on the right types of jobs and so forth.
Can you give us an example of how those principles were applied to a product development process?
It's not that we set off in the beginning saying, let's follow these principles and make it work. It's more used maybe when we onboard new colleagues, when we work with third parties or get people in and forge the team that's going to work on something. Then it's really important to go through these things, just so we all align on what are the creative and cultural pillars that we're going to use and have drive this process forwards. It's more of a mindset that we all align on in the beginning of the process, I would say.
Can you tell us about maybe transition time in the company where you started applying these principles and you saw better outcomes in the projects?
The principles grew out of the collective of the smaller unit. When we were smaller, these principles were very organically ingrained in everyone. And then, of course, as you grow, I wouldn't say disappear, but they fade out a little bit. And then we started seeing it dip a little bit. For example, we'd have a designer come in and be very, okay, I have only one proposal and this is the only way to do it, which is against our principles. We believe in a multitude of ideas to find the best one. It was more of a curve where we had it so organically in the beginning, and then as we grew, we lost it a bit, and then we had to formalize it a bit a couple of years ago. We're almost there where most of the company could probably mention these if woken up in the middle of the night. And more importantly, I would say they live by it.
It sounds like you had to build a team culture at Above as you got bigger beyond the immediate HAL group.
I think so. I mean, even the immediate Above group, we were 80 for quite a while. Even 80 is actually somewhat manageable. But now that we're 160, then we really do need to be a little bit more descriptive about it. It doesn't just happen by itself. I wouldn't say we had to build a culture, but a culture needs to evolve. We couldn't just keep it because we're a different beast. We have different capabilities, new people. You don't want to come into a static culture and feel that you need to subscribe to that specifically. So a culture needs to evolve as you grow. And it's just tricky. It's tricky to handle that. How do we do our parties? We used to all party together all the time, and now we're in multiple locations. How do we handle that? How do you handle everything that comes with that size? It just needs to be a little bit more captured. Obviously, our operations are way more well-oiled and smooth today than before. So a lot of things are always changing. I mean, luckily, as a designer, you're schooled and trained to handle change. In that regard, I'd say we're pretty used to change by now, especially over the past couple of years of COVIDs and recessions and wars and all kinds of things.
Did you have to build out some new traditions that made sure that these principles grow and thrive across the company?
We for sure make sure to spend quite a lot of money on parties and conferences. There's at least 6 recurring over a year, and then plenty of others sprinkled out all over where we all come together at least. There's plenty of traditions on a weekly basis. You can't always nowadays look over someone's shoulder and get inspired. We need to distribute inspiration more. So we have inspiration lectures and things like that. You got to work on sharing knowledge, sharing the love, and get together as a team.
A studio is more than just putting people on a desk.
Especially these days, because I'd say 20 years ago, a lot of people wanted to work in agencies, or at least 10 years ago, there were a lot of agencies and a lot of attraction force to that. Then, of course, there was this big migration to going in-house. Everyone went to Google. Everyone went to the big companies with the big wallets. A lot of agencies were sold or went belly up, and the whole agency life got a bit of a hit. And then we need to somehow combat sometimes the bigger companies, bigger wallets, with having a culture that is really attractive and magnetic.
Would you say that's your competitive advantage over other companies?
I would say so. I want to be humble in that. I'm sure everyone would say that about their work.
Would you say there'd be other comparative advantages over some of the competition that Above provides as well?
There's a couple of competitive advantages, maybe a part of the Scandinavian mindset. There's something in that, both in the actual design work of simplicity to some extent and reducing the excess and focusing on really strong singular stories and products. I think there's something in that Scandinavian mindset that seemed to resonate with a lot of our global clients. And in that is also this drive for a better tomorrow or a positive change. We've been quite adamant about not taking clients that do harm. We haven't done anything in vaping, smoking, alcohol, even though there's been plenty of approaches in that field. Other advantages, maybe the big one is just the fact that we have all these capabilities under one roof. The fact that we have really good UX, UI teams working tightly with industrial design, physical design teams. That's quite rare to have that equal balance and sharpness in both. And then the scale as well. You can work with either just an individual or a team, let's say an industrial design task, but you can also come to us for the full Monty of expertise at Above. And then if you want to go beyond that, you can also go to our mother company, Adra, which then gives you some of the best branding in the world, brand strategies, marketing, management consulting, software, and so forth. So just that ladder of scale is also a bit of an advantage, I would say.
Can you actually tell me just quickly how it works with iDry? Is that a company that's acquired Above?
4 years ago, we sold the entirety to Adra, but then also became a part of it, which was a super nice thing for us. As an agency, the early days, which I'm sure you're aware, you're really optimistic, I should say. I shouldn't say lying. I should say you're really optimistic about what you can offer your clients. Whatever the client needs, in the early days, you'll say you can deliver. The early days, we did all kinds of stuff. Joining Idra, we're able to really just focus on the things that we're really, really good at. And then brand strategy, again, as mentioned, one of our sister companies is one of the absolute best in the world on that. So we'll kindly give them that job or vice versa. I think it works really nicely today, being able to orchestrate all those different capabilities and companies very easily between each other, but also still keeping the sharpness of the individual companies.
Very cool. That's a good place to be.
When you take on a project, do you go more for a marathon, like an in-house business, or is it more of a sprint, like a traditional consultancy, or do you just balance it based upon the customer's needs?
It's probably an interval sprint, or what's it called, high intensity training. Some of our projects are, of course, shorter, especially new clients tend to do maybe shorter projects. We're starting to date, figuring out the relationship. That's more of an initial sprint, and then that converges to projects, and then that goes over to maybe retainers or full programs, and then ultimately that transitions to partnerships. We have some partnerships that we've had for 10 years. We value those amazing, of course. It's fantastic to have that deep collaboration, and then mix that up with the really short, crazy sprints that gives you a heart attack. But also makes you feel very alive.
Relatable. Speaking about some of those projects, can you give us an example of a product that you've designed using your process and how the above finishing touch made sure it was the best on the market?
I would use the example of Fairphone. I'm not sure you guys are aware of Fairphone. It's a Dutch company trying to really push the envelope on sustainable consumer electronics. It's more than sustainability. It's pushing modularity. It's built to last. They have a long warranty period, and all the materials and components are ethically sourced and so forth. Really one of those do-good companies that we want to support. They're also amazing people. We've helped them on their latest 3 generations. The last one, the Fairphone 6, that was just recently launched. We're able to help them out on industrial design, but also on engineering, some supply chain, some software here and there, some visual design, UX, and so forth. That's one example. I have another one, which is very different from that, which is a cake bike that you might have heard of, which is an off-road electric motorbike.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the pictures. Yeah.
We had Stefan Itzebon on as well.
Oh, yeah, you had. Fantastic. Yes. So we helped him out with that in the beginning. We worked with him back in the POC days as well. I mean, I wouldn't take full credit for that. Stefan is a visionary and had a good idea of what he wanted to build, but we helped him execute that and create this disruptive icon at the time. This is Casper Asmussen. 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 And you're listening to Redacted. 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 Redacted.
You mentioned prior that your Scandinavianness as a studio has influenced the way you work, the output. How would you say that the cultural origins of Above have influenced the output of the studio, as well as maybe your work personally?
Personally, I'm half Danish, half Swedish, with a lovely, quite pragmatic Swedish mother and a lunatic of a father from Denmark, which was quite crazy and always very, very personal and funny as well. So I have one foot in each camp. Whereas no matter in which context we as a studio are, even if we're meeting some of the great leaders of some of the biggest companies in the world, will be quite personal and outspoken, which I think has been a culture that a lot of our teams are adhering to. And then as a studio, we are based here, and we of course have a fair amount of Swedish people working here as well, and Scandinavians. There's a Swedish saying you might have heard about lagom, which is finding the right balance between too much and too little. If product design is like a mixer table, you're producing a song. It's quite important to not pull every lever to the top. It'll be a terrible song. We're very much about reducing, and find that specific thing that's the hero element or the hero experience. I don't want to be presumptuous and say that's typically Scandinavian, but at least that's how people expect Scandinavian design to be. We then, of course, have a very international workforce, way more than pretty much every other company, at least in this part of the world. There's a nice blend between the Scandinavian mentality, but also we get that global mindset as well, which I wouldn't say softens the edges of the Scandinavian, but it makes it more applicable to a global audience. There can be a little twist of it, but while we're Scandinavian at heart, it's not hyper radical in its minimalism. Redacted, 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 redacted.
Maybe taking more of a business route, what would you say in your experience is the best way to advertise or draw in clients that suit Above's business goals?
It's more on the network and the do good work storyline. The network just expands so much. Then you need to break new ground and meet new people. All the typical channels of publishing and getting your work out there. I personally work a lot in commercial, but I really hate sales. I hate sales more than anything, but I just don't see it as sales.
That's probably how we know you're good at it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I couldn't sell ice cream on a hot day on the beach, but what we do is not really selling. We're meeting either existing or new clients. We get to talk about their challenges. We get to collectively ideate around new opportunities. So a lot of what we're doing business development wise is trying to meet as many people we can, be quite distinct in who we'd like to work with, try to reach out, set up a meeting, talk about challenges. And it's actually a mix of commercial and creative. Because in those meetings, it's like surfing. You can't really predict the wave. You're just riding it when you go along, and you're almost creating the brief together, uncovering opportunities for the client to reach further or do more or do better. I've at least convinced myself that commercial work is creative work, and it makes me feel better.
That's the real secret.
That's good. When you're having these conversations and trying to talk them into reaching further and say that good design's a good value add, what does that look like? And how's that changed in recent years to maybe years before?
In some ways, it's changed. I think some budgets have gotten smaller and some bigger. There are fewer things where we do a solitary product just by itself, and much more work where it's about defining a portfolio of things or setting a DNA or design language for a family of products and experiences and so forth. Then when it comes to the value add, there is an expectation more today than before that can you guys show us a return on investment for this? And that's always been this holy grail for designers. We need to be able to define KPIs for the impact that design has. In practice, that's quite difficult, obviously. We'll never really know what attributed a specific product succeeding or not. Was it design? Was it price point? Whatever it could be. There's an infinite amount of parameters that influence that. So it makes it really hard to be technical and data-driven around impact. But we do see clients asking for that a little bit more now. Definitely, I'd say the general landscape in the world as we see it now is a little bit more cautious, a little less willing to take risk. Sometimes we will have clients who say, you must guarantee innovation in this amount of time for this amount of money, and you cannot fail. Obviously, that framework is an impossibility, especially in innovation. Perhaps it's doable when you just design another thing, but in innovation, obviously, it's impossible to capture that. And if failing isn't an option, it's really hard to succeed.
What has been your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
Oh my God, how much time do we have? Let's see.
This is always a big one.
Nothing relationship related.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I'll refrain from that. In reality, quite a lot of things fail. It's not the best sales pitch, but we all know that, especially if you work maybe in the startup world, we've done our fair share of supporting startups. Scale-ups have a better chance of succeeding, of course, but right there's been some craziness over the years where, of course, that didn't make it. So there's been plenty of failures there. We helped a Swedish furniture manufacturer to do this wireless dimmer that would control light in your home. And we were thinking it was super clever. It didn't have any buttons. It was gyro controlled. You could magnetically put it anywhere. It was just this amazing little thing. And that felt magical in a way. And the experience was well received by designers, and Fast Company would say, it's amazing. It's the best ever. It didn't sell to the expectation.
Oh, no.
Because it didn't describe its purpose. It was just an unknown entity that in store you wouldn't really know what it did.
What do you think was missing? Was there no light bulb symbol on it, or it was just too abstract?
I think it was just too abstract. If you create something new, you also need to have a reference to something that is a known signature or known thing. So you have a reference point to which you compare the newness. If it's just entirely new, it can easily just be like, what the hell is it? What do I need it for? What does it do? How does it work? If you have all those questions as a consumer, that's quite a high bar.
It needs to be a little bit skeuomorphic, otherwise it's alien.
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit more approachable.
Yeah, approachable is a good word.
I think you've delved into the role of designer in your processes, but what will it look like in the future, the role of a designer within Above?
Ooh, that's a good one. AI is, of course, turning things upside down a bit. There are definitely days where it feels like that's a pending doom and we can all just lay down our hats and go to rest. Most of the days, I'm quite optimistic. If you, as a designer, see yourself as a stylist or take pride in the craft, that's all amazing. I love those parts of it. But if you see yourself as a problem solver, I think we can all agree that we still have plenty of problems to solve out there. I'm not necessarily worried about the profession in any way, but we need to transform it. You need to be able to, of course, be curious and learn all the new tools and all that. Yes, 100%, but also not forget to use our brains. So far, it's really fast to visualize and prototype alternative futures or products. But so far, I haven't really seen technology take over and telling us what is the right thing to do. How do we make things that are the right things to do to build a better future? I haven't seen that yet. We might have a few more years before we lay down our hats and pens.
I hope so.
Have you seen a customer try to pay you less because of AI yet?
I've heard of it. We haven't experienced it ourselves, but I'm sure it'll come. We are working extensively with it. We have a dedicated AI studio with about 15 people working only on that, pushing both the Gen AI, the visual side of things, but also optimization and so forth. At times, of course, it feels a little bit like shooting ourselves in the foot because you're creating things that historically took a long time to do and to make, and we could charge for. But that's just a transition period. We just need to take that head on. I'm still very optimistic that we can use AI to tell better stories, the way we do storyboards today, the way we put products in context in no time, the way we animate the product so you really get the feeling. There are plenty of ways for AI to help us make better decisions faster, and I think that's going to be a good thing.
If someone was to become a designer at Above, what's the golden hire look like to you?
I am personally a big fan of people that speak up. Regardless of where you are, we're quite flat and unhierarchical. Even if you're an intern or a junior or wherever you are, I'm expecting you to be vocal about what you think. That would be a prerequisite. And then, of course, blending that with exceptional talent, which is a clear given, of course. What we sell or what we make and the value that we create is in many cases pretty much always something that doesn't exist yet. So you need to be able to tell rich stories about why it's a good idea, how people are going to use it, why is this particular direction the strongest one. So articulation and exceptional talent.
A great answer.
Redacted.
Do you still do graffiti at all?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't.
Okay.
Is that a I don't or I plead the fourth?
He's not going to tell us his tagger name.
No comment.
Yeah, exactly. Let me tell you, my tagger name isn't Above.
Damn it.
Oh, they were going to be on to you. There was a cop listening to this that just went, oh, God damn it.
Freeze. We've been trying to catch you for 15 years.
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, this has actually just been a sting operation.
Do you still do any artistic projects or other projects when you're not doing Above stuff?
I do. I still somehow fiddle around a lot with graphics of various sorts, whether it's for Above or for friends and things like that. I did for quite a few years have a kite and a surfboard brand as well with some friends on the side. There's just so many hours in the day, but I try to keep creativity close to heart and close to mind all the time.
Thanks, Casper, for joining us on the show today. It's been amazing to hear your story, and we've thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was super fun.
For our listeners, don't forget to check out the show notes for links to anything we've mentioned, where to follow the show, see Above's work, plus more info about our sponsor, Better Futures. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, this has been REDACTED.
The number you have dialed has not been recognized. Please check and try again. The number you have dialed has been
Redacted.